The Dominion had conquered 43 species across the galaxy. They were the apex predators of the known universe. Standing 7 feet tall with armored hide and 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, they had never lost a war. No species had ever survived open conflict against them. They believed themselves invincible, and for 10,000 years, nothing had proven them wrong. Grand Warlord sat on his throne aboard the Dominion flagship, reviewing reports from the edge of their territory. A new species had appeared in the galaxy barely 2 centuries ago. They called themselves humans. They were soft, fragile creatures with only 2 arms and thin skin that could be cut with a simple blade. They had 12 colony worlds and a small fleet of ships. They seemed peaceful, preferring trade and diplomacy over conquest. Saw opportunity. "These humans," he said to Battle Master who stood beside him, "they are weak. Their bodies are fragile. Their technology is inferior to ours. Why do we allow them to exist on our border?" Was a veteran of 30 campaigns. He had helped conquer a dozen species, but something about the humans made him uneasy. "They have not threatened us, Grand Warlord. They keep to themselves." "That is not what I asked," replied. "I asked why we allow them to exist." Before could answer, a communication came through. A patrol ship had encountered a human transport vessel near disputed space. The patrol commander had decided to send a message to these soft creatures. He had destroyed the transport. Smiled, "Good, let them know their place." The transport had been carrying 2,400 human civilians, families, children, people traveling to start new lives on a settlement world. They had been in neutral space, following all proper navigation routes. The patrol had attacked anyway, leaving nothing but wreckage and bodies floating in the void. 3 hours later, Captain Hajun of the UESC Defiance arrived at the scene. His ship had received the distress signal, but they had been too far away. They arrived too late to save anyone. Hajun stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the debris drifted past. Personal belongings floated among the wreckage. A child's toy, a family photograph in a broken frame, bodies of men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except exist near space. Lieutenant Commander Park Ah stood beside him. Her hands were clenched into fists and her jaw was tight with anger. "Captain," she said, her voice barely controlled, "we have recovered the transport's flight recorder. They were in neutral space. They attacked without warning." Hajun said nothing for a long moment. He had served in the human fleet for 20 years. He had seen conflict before, but this was different. This was murder. This was a message. "Send the flight recorder data to Fleet Command," he said quietly, "and begin recovery of the bodies. Every single one. We bring them home." On the Grand Warlord received the human response to the attack. The humans demanded an explanation. They wanted justice for the dead. They presented navigation data proving the transport had been in neutral space. Laughed and threw the message aside. "These creatures think they can demand things from us, from the Dominion." Elder, the ancient historian of the, stepped forward. He was old, very old, and he remembered things that others had forgotten. "Grand Warlord," he said carefully, "I have been searching our oldest records. There are warnings about a species from a death world, a persistent species that should not be." "Silence," commanded. "I do not care about old stories. These humans are nothing. They have 12 worlds, we have thousands, they have 100 ships, we have millions. This will not be a war, it will be an execution." Bowed his head but did not leave. He had read the ancient records. He knew what they said about the species from the 3rd planet of a small yellow sun, but would not listen and was too old to argue with warlords. Ambassador, the Dominion's chief diplomat, tried one more time. "Grand Warlord, perhaps we should negotiate, pay compensation for the dead. The humans seem reasonable. They might accept." "They will accept our rule or they will die," declared. "I am done with this discussion. Send the declaration." The formal declaration of war was transmitted to human space. They expected the humans to panic. They expected surrender within weeks. Every other species had surrendered when faced with the might of the Dominion. The humans would be no different. Captain Ha-Jun received the declaration aboard the Defiance. His crew gathered on the bridge, watching him read the message. They had given them 10 days to surrender all their worlds or face total destruction. Ha-Jun read the message twice. Then he set it aside and looked at his crew. Sergeant Dongwu, the Marine commander, Dr. Shin, the ship's medical officer, young Ensign Min at the communications station. They were all waiting for his response. Sir, Min asked, what do we tell them? Ha-Jun thought about the debris field, the child's toy, the bodies they had recovered. He thought about the families who would never see their loved ones again. He thought about what they had done and what they planned to do. Tell them nothing, he said. We do not negotiate with murderers. Ah stepped closer. Captain, their fleet is massive. They have conquered 43 species. How do we fight something like that? Ha-Jun turned to look at her. His face was calm, but his eyes held something cold and hard. They have conquered species that surrendered, species that gave up, species that decided death was better than fighting. He paused. We are not those species. Dongwu, the old Marine sergeant who had fought in 3 colonial wars, nodded slowly. What are your orders, Captain? Begin evacuation of all civilian populations from the border colonies. Move them to the core worlds. Ha-Jun sat down in his command chair. And send word to Fleet Command. Tell them we need every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. And then asked. Ha-Jun looked at the stars that stretched endlessly into the void. Somewhere out there, they were preparing for an easy victory. They thought they were the predators. They thought humans were prey. They had no idea what they had done. Then, Ha-Jun said quietly, we teach them why you never start a war with humans. Across human space, evacuation orders went out. Civilians moved to safety. Children were loaded onto transport ships. Families left their homes behind. But even as the civilians retreated, the military moved forward. Ships that had been scattered across human territory began to gather. Soldiers who had been stationed on peaceful worlds received new orders. They were not preparing to defend. They were preparing to attack. In the command center, Battle Master watched the sensor data with growing confusion. Human colonies were emptying, but the human military was not retreating. They were moving toward space. Grand Warlord, he reported, the humans are not behaving as expected. They are not defending their worlds. They are evacuating civilians and advancing their military. Was unconcerned. Let them come. It will make destroying them easier. They will die in our space instead of theirs. But could not shake his unease. Every species they had conquered had defended their homes. Every species had tried to protect their worlds. The humans were doing something different, something no one had done before. And that realized was what frightened him. 3 weeks into the war, the invasion fleet arrived at the human colony world of Nu. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charged and ready to reduce the planet to ash. Battle Master commanded the fleet personally. Grand Warlord wanted quick victories and intended to deliver them. But when the sensors cleared, found nothing. The planet was empty. The cities stood silent. The spaceports were abandoned. Not a single human ship orbited the world. Not a single life sign registered on the surface. Where are they? Demanded. His officers searched desperately for answers. They scanned every corner of the system. Nothing. The humans had vanished like ghosts. They evacuated, one officer reported. The entire population. They left nothing behind. Felt a chill run through his armored body. This was wrong. Species did not abandon their worlds. They fought for their homes. They died for their territories. That was how war worked. That was how it had always worked. The move to the next human world. Empty. The next. Empty. Every colony they reached had been stripped of its population. The humans had taken everything of value and disappeared into the void. "They are cowards," Grand Warlord declared when he received the reports. "They run instead of fight. This proves our superiority." But was not so sure. Cowards did not evacuate entire planets in perfect order. Cowards did not leave behind functioning power grids and clean cities. The humans had not fled in panic. They had retreated with purpose. The question was, purpose for what? The answer came 1 week later. A supply convoy was moving through an asteroid field near the border. 50 transport ships carried weapons, ammunition, and food for the invasion fleet. They had a military escort of 20 warships. It should have been safe. The human ships appeared from behind the asteroids without warning. They had been waiting there for days, running silent, hidden among the rocks. Captain Ha-Jun commanded the attack from the bridge of the Defiance. "All ships fire at will," he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Park Ah controlled the weapon systems. Her fingers moved across the console with deadly precision. Missiles launched. Energy beams cut through the void. The escort ships tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, every ship was destroyed or disabled. Not a single supply transport survived. The humans vanished back into the asteroid field before reinforcements could arrive. Received the report with cold fury. "They ambushed our supply line. They knew exactly where our ships would be." "Impossible," his tactical officer insisted. "Our patrol routes are classified. Our communication codes are encrypted. They could not have known." But they had known. The humans had been watching, learning, studying patterns and frequencies. They had not been running from the war. They had been preparing for it. Over the next week, they lost more ships to human ambushes than they had lost conquering the last 3 species combined. Human vessels appeared without warning, struck hard, and disappeared before the Dominion could respond. They did not fight like any enemy they had faced before. Captain Ha-Jun studied every engagement carefully. He learned which formations were weakest. He discovered which ship types were slowest to respond. He found the gaps in their sensor networks and exploited them ruthlessly. "They are not cowards," finally admitted to. "They are hunting us." Refused to believe it. "We are the hunters. We are the predators. These soft creatures cannot hunt us." But the evidence said otherwise. The Defiance led a strike team deep into controlled space. Their target was a destroyer-class warship that had been damaged in a previous engagement. Lieutenant Commander Ah had developed a new tactic. Instead of destroying enemy ships, they would capture them. Sergeant Dongwu led the boarding party. He was a veteran Marine from 3 colonial wars, and he had trained his squad for exactly this kind of mission. Their shuttle latched onto the destroyer's hull, and they cut their way inside. The crew fought back with savage fury. They were larger than humans, stronger. Their claws could tear through body armor, but the humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. They pushed forward through the corridors, fighting for every meter. Dongwu took a claw strike across his chest that shattered 2 ribs. He killed the who struck him and kept moving. One of his Marines lost an arm to an enemy blade. She switched her rifle to her other hand and continued firing. They could not understand it. When their warriors were wounded, they fell back to recover. When they were outnumbered, they retreated to better positions. But these humans kept coming. They smiled through bloody teeth. They laughed when they should have been screaming. The destroyer was captured in 40 minutes. Dongwu stood on the enemy bridge, bleeding from a dozen wounds, and reported to Captain Ha-Jun. "Ship secured, Captain. Minimal casualties on our side." "Minimal?" Ha-Jun asked. 3 wounded, none dead." Dongwu looked at the bodies around him. "They do not know how to fight enemies that do not give up." Dr. Shin examined the captured wounded aboard the Defiance. She was as well as a medical officer, and she studied the enemy with scientific curiosity. What she found surprised her. "Captain," she reported to Ha-Jun, "I have discovered something important. They are physically superior to us in almost every way. Stronger, faster, more heavily armored, but they have a weakness." "What weakness?" "They have never fought a prolonged war," pulled up medical data on her screen. "Every species they conquered surrendered quickly. They have no experience with extended conflict. Their bodies are not designed for it. They tire faster than we do. They need more rest, more food, more recovery time." Ha-Jun considered this carefully. "They are sprinters. We are marathon runners." "Exactly. If we can make this war last, if we can force them to fight for months instead of weeks, their advantage disappears." This was the key. The humans could not match the in raw power, but they could outlast them. They could make the war long and painful and exhausting. They could turn this greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Ha-Jun ordered a captured officer to be treated and released. Dongwu personally escorted the prisoner to a shuttle and gave him a message to deliver. "Tell your Grand Warlord something," Dongwu said. "Tell him that what he has seen so far was just our scouts. Our fleet has not arrived yet." The officer stared at the human with four eyes filled with confusion. "You release me. Why? We are enemies." Dongwu smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Because we want you to tell them what you saw. We want them to know what is coming." The officer returned to his people and delivered the message. He told them about the humans who kept fighting with broken bones. He told them about soldiers who smiled while bleeding. He told them about enemies who did not know how to surrender. Grand Warlord dismissed the report as exaggeration. Battle Master did not. That night went to the archives and found Elder. "Tell me about the Death World," he said. "Tell me everything." Looked at the Battle Master with ancient eyes. "You are beginning to understand," he said. "The humans come from a planet where everything evolved to kill. Their world tried to destroy them for millions of years. It failed. They did not just survive. They conquered their death world, and now they have come to the stars." Felt fear for the first time in his long military career. "Can we defeat them?" Was silent for a long moment. "I do not know," he finally admitted. "No one has ever tried to fight a species like this before. No one has ever been foolish enough to start a war with creatures who do not know how to lose." In the void between stars, human ships gathered in numbers they had not expected. The fleet that had seemed so small was growing. Reinforcements arrived from every human world. Civilians volunteered for military service. Factories worked around the clock to build new weapons. The humans were not just fighting back. They were preparing for something much larger. And deep in human space, Captain Ha-Jun looked at the star map and planned his next move. They had started this war. The humans would finish it. 2 months into the war, something happened that had never happened before in the 10,000-year history of the Dominion. Enemy ships appeared in orbit above one of their border worlds. The humans had invaded space. Captain Ha-Jun stood on the bridge of the Defiance as his fleet moved into position around Prime. They were not there to conquer. They were there to send a message. They had believed they were safe in their own territory. They had believed the war would be fought only in human space. They were wrong. "All ships target the orbital defense platforms," Ha-Jun ordered. "Disable them. Do not destroy the civilian stations." Lieutenant Commander Park executed the attack with surgical precision. Human missiles struck the military targets and left the civilian structures untouched. The message was clear. The humans could destroy everything if they wanted to. They chose not to. Grand Warlord received the news with fury that shook the walls of his command center. "They dare to attack our worlds. They dare to bring war to Dominion space." He ordered every available ship to respond. Fleets from across the Empire were recalled from conquered territories. For the first time in living memory, they were on the defensive. But pulling ships from the conquered territories created a new problem. The enslaved species of the Dominion had lived under rule for generations. They had been beaten down, broken, forced to serve their masters. They had given up hope long ago. Now rumors began to spread. There was a species that fought back, a species that could not be broken, a species that had invaded space and survived. On a dozen conquered worlds, slaves began to whisper the word human like it was a prayer. Elder finally gained a proper audience with Grand Warlord. The ancient historian had spent weeks searching the oldest archives, the records that no one had read for thousands of years. What he found terrified him. Grand Warlord said, "You must listen to me. The humans are not like other species. They come from a death world." Waved his clawed hand dismissively. "You have said this before. I do not care about their planet." "You should," pulled up ancient star charts on the display. "There is called Earth, the third planet of a small yellow sun in the outer spiral arm. Our ancestors sent probes there long ago before we became the Dominion. Do you know what they found?" Did not answer. "They found a world of nightmares," displayed the data. "Venomous creatures that kill with a single bite, predators that hunt in packs, bacteria that evolve to resist medicine, temperatures that range from freezing cold to burning heat, disasters that destroy entire regions. Everything on that planet evolved to kill." "And the humans survived this?" asked, finally showing interest. "They did more than survive. They dominated it," changed the display to show images of Earth, humans building cities, humans taming predators, humans spreading across every continent, every climate, every environment. They hunted their predators to extinction. They reshaped their world to serve them. They did not adapt to their planet. They forced their planet to adapt to them. Battle Master stepped forward. "What does this mean for the war?" Turned to face him. "It means we are fighting a species that has been at war since the moment they evolved. Their entire existence has been a struggle for survival. They do not know peace. They do not understand surrender. When they face a threat, they do not run from it. They destroy it." The command center was silent. For the first time, the leaders began to understand what they were facing. While and his generals debated strategy, Ambassador took a different approach. She secretly contacted the human forces and requested a private communication channel. She wanted to understand why the humans would not negotiate. Ensign Min received her transmission aboard the Defiance. He was young on his first deployment, but he had grown up quickly during the war. He brought the message to Captain Ha-Jun. "Sir, the ambassador wants to talk. She says she tried to prevent the war." Ha-Jun considered the request. "Open a channel. Let us hear what she has to say." Appeared on the, she was smaller than most, her features softer, her voice gentler. "Captain," she said, "I must understand something. Your species is new to the galaxy. You have few worlds, a small population. Why do you not surrender? You must know you cannot defeat the entire Dominion." Ha-Jun looked at her calmly. "You attacked our civilians, families, children, people who had done nothing wrong. It was a mistake, a patrol commander acting without orders. We could pay compensation. We could." "This is not about compensation." Ha-Jun's voice was firm but not angry. "This is about what you are. The Dominion has conquered 43 species. You enslave them, you break them. You take everything they are and crush it. We will not be added to that list." Was silent for a moment. "You would rather die than surrender. We would rather fight forever than live as slaves." The ambassador struggled to understand. "But the cost, the lives lost, the destruction, how can you accept such a price?" Ha-Jun thought about the debris field where this all began. The child's toy floating in the void. The bodies of innocent people who had trusted the galaxy to be safe. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said. "On our world, we have been at war with each other for our entire history. We have fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over things that do not matter at all. We have killed millions of our own kind. We have destroyed our own cities. We have committed terrible acts against ourselves. Stared at him in horror. You war against your own species. Constantly, for thousands of years, we never stopped. Hajun leaned forward. And yet we are still here. We survived our own violence. We survived our death world. We survived everything the universe threw at us. Do you understand what that means? The ambassador did not answer. It means that this war, your invasion, your entire dominion is just another challenge. We have faced worse. We have survived worse. And we will survive this too. Min watched the exchange with growing understanding. He had wondered why the older officers seemed so calm even when facing impossible odds. Now he knew. To them, this was not an existential crisis. This was just another war. Humans had been fighting wars since they climbed down from the trees. One more enemy, no matter how powerful, was not going to change who they were. The communication ended without agreement. She returned to her leaders with a disturbing report. The humans were not afraid. They were not desperate. They were patient. That was what made them dangerous. 1 week later, human reinforcements arrived in space. Not 12 ships, not 50, not even 100. 300 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They were broadcasting music across all frequencies. Ancient human war songs. Drums and horns and voices singing words in languages they could not understand. Watched the sensor data with cold dread. Where did they come from? Our intelligence said they had less than 200 ships total. They built more, his tactical officer reported. Their factories have been working continuously since the war began. They have not stopped. They do not sleep. They do not rest. That is impossible. No species can maintain that level of production. But the evidence was right in front of them. 300 ships and more were coming. The humans had taken the first 2 months of the war to prepare. Now they were ready to fight. Captain Hajun looked at the fleet gathered around him. Ships from every human colony, soldiers from every world, scientists, engineers, doctors, warriors, all united against a common enemy. "Attention all vessels," he broadcast. "The thought we were weak because we chose peace. They thought we were cowards because we preferred diplomacy. They were wrong. We chose peace because we know what war costs. We know the price of conflict better than any species in this galaxy." He paused, letting his words sink in. But peace requires both sides to choose it. They chose war. Now they will learn why that was the worst decision they ever made. All ships advance into Dominion space. It is time to end this. The human fleet moved forward as one. Behind them, the enslaved species of the Dominion watched and waited and hoped. The galaxy had never seen anything like this before. The predators had become the prey, and the prey had learned to hunt. 4 months into the war, the Dominion faced something it had never experienced before: attrition. Their empire was built on quick conquests and total domination. They had never fought an enemy that refused to fall. They had never waged a war that lasted this long. And they were beginning to break. The enslaved species that had served the Dominion for generations were rising up. Human agents had spread across conquered territories, carrying a simple message: you do not have to serve them forever. Rebellion sparked on a dozen worlds. Factory workers sabotaged weapons production. Ship crews refused to fight. The infrastructure of the empire began to crack. Grand Warlord gathered his personal fleet for one final push. The largest armada the Dominion had assembled in 1,000 years. 800 warships, the best crews, the most advanced weapons. He would crush the human advance personally and restore order to his crumbling empire. "Enough games," he declared to his officers. "We end this now. We find their fleet and we destroy it completely. No mercy, no survivors." Battle Master stood at his side, but doubt had taken root in his heart. He had studied the humans for months now. He had learned things about them that haunted his sleep. But he kept his concerns to himself, would not listen. The two fleets met in the nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust between space and human territory. It was the largest naval engagement in galactic history. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. Captain Hajun looked at the enemy fleet on his. 800 ships against his 300. Any sane commander would retreat. Any reasonable species would negotiate. Hajun ordered his ships to hold position. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Park Ah said carefully, they outnumber us significantly. We could withdraw to a more defensible position. No, Hajun's voice was calm but firm. We hold here, we buy time. Time for what? For our reinforcements to reach the... Hajun pulled up the tactical display. We do not need to win this battle, we need to survive it long enough for the Second Fleet to complete their mission. If we retreat, they chase us. If we hold, they have to deal with us first. Ah understood. This was not a battle for victory. It was a battle for time, and time was measured in human lives. Then we hold, she said. Grand Warlord ordered the attack. The fleet surged forward, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. They expected the humans to break. They expected fear and retreat. Instead, the humans advanced to meet them. The battle began at midday ship time. It would not end for 18 hours. Warships tore into the human formation with devastating power. Their weapons were stronger. Their shields were tougher. Their ships were faster. In the first hour, the humans lost 40 vessels. But they did not retreat. Captain Hajun commanded from the center of the formation, directing ships with precise orders. Fall back here. Push forward there. Create gaps in the line. Exploit weaknesses. Every move was calculated. Every sacrifice had purpose. By the third hour, they had lost 60 ships. The humans had lost 80. The exchange rate favored the Dominion, but noticed something disturbing. Human crews were rotating. Fresh officers replaced tired ones. Damaged systems were repaired even during combat. The humans had prepared for a long fight. They are not tiring, he reported too. Their efficiency is not dropping. Then hit them harder, commanded. Break their formation, kill their flagship. They concentrated their fire on the Defiance. Hajun's ship absorbed hit after hit, shields flickering, hull breaching in multiple sections. But the crew kept fighting. Dr. Shin set up medical stations throughout the ship, treating wounded without stopping. Ensign Min managed communications despite a shrapnel wound in his shoulder. By the 8th hour, the crews were exhausted. They had been fighting continuously without rest. Their bodies demanded sleep. Their minds demanded relief. But the battle was not over, and the humans were still fighting. Doctor broadcast on all frequencies. Attention enemy vessels. I am a human medical officer. I want to explain something to you about our species. They listened, confused by this strange interruption. Humans are pursuit predators, continued. On our, we did not hunt by being faster or stronger than our prey. We hunted by following them, walking, running, never stopping. We followed animals for hours, for days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our bodies are designed for endurance. We do not need to defeat you. We just need to outlast you. The message spread through the fleet. Officers who had been confident began to doubt. Crews who had expected quick victory realized they were trapped in a war of attrition against a species built for exactly that. Hour 12. They had lost 200 ships. The humans had lost 150. The exchange rate had shifted. Tired gunners made mistakes. Exhausted pilots flew into friendly fire. Fatigued commanders issued confused orders. The humans kept coming. Fresh crews took over. Wounded soldiers returned to their stations with bandages still wet. Ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting with half their systems offline. Sergeant Dongwu led a desperate boarding action against the flagship. His Marines cut through the enemy vessel, fighting corridor by corridor toward the engine room. Their mission was simple: disable the engines and trap in the battle. Dongwu had been fighting for 16 hours. His body was covered in wounds. 3 of his ribs were broken, cracked again from fresh impacts. One of his eyes was swollen shut. He did not stop. "Move forward," he ordered his squad. "We are almost there." A warrior blocked their path, larger than the others, elite guard armor gleaming. He roared a challenge and charged. Dongwu met him head-on, though was stronger, faster, better armored. But Dongwu had something the alien did not understand. He had will, he had purpose, he had rage. The fight lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, the warrior was dead and Dongwu was still standing. Barely, but standing. His marines planted explosives on the flagship's engines. The detonation crippled the vessel, leaving it drifting helplessly in the nebula. Hour 16. Lieutenant Commander Ah saw her chance. The flagship was disabled. Their formation was breaking as tired crews lost coordination. One concentrated strike could end the battle. "Captain," she reported, "I can hit their main cannon, take it out completely, but I need to get close." Ha-Jun looked at the tactical display. Getting close meant flying through concentrated enemy fire. The chances of survival were minimal. "Do it," he said. Ah piloted a strike craft personally. She had trained for this. She had imagined this moment since the war began, since she saw the debris field and the bodies and the child's toy floating in the void. Her craft screamed through the battle, dodging fire, weaving between explosions. Gunners tried to track her, but they were too tired, too slow. She reached the flagship and launched her payload directly into the main cannon. The explosion was massive. The flagship's primary weapon disappeared in fire and debris. Ah's craft was caught in the blast. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. She ejected at the last possible second, her pod spinning wildly through the chaos. Ensign Min saw her beacon. Without orders, without permission, he piloted a rescue shuttle into the heart of the battle. He found her pod and pulled her aboard. She was alive. Burned, wounded, but alive. Hour 18. The fleet was shattered. 300 ships destroyed or disabled. Grand Warlord's flagship drifted powerless, its crew too exhausted to repair the damage. The human fleet was battered, reduced to half its original strength, but still fighting. Stood beside on the crippled bridge. "Grand Warlord, we must retreat. We cannot win this." Stared at the human ships that refused to die, at the battle that had lasted longer than any in history. "How?" he whispered. "How can they keep fighting?" "Because they do not know how to stop," said. "Because surrender is not in their nature. Because they are exactly what the old records warned us about." The fleet retreated. It was the first retreat in the history of the Dominion. Broken ships limped back toward home space, carrying crews that would never see war the same way again. Captain Ha-Jun watched them go. His ship was barely functional. His crew was exhausted beyond measure, but they had won. They had held. A message arrived from Human Command. The Second Fleet had reached space. They were in orbit above the enemy. Ha-Jun allowed himself a small smile. "Send a message too," he told Min. "Tell him this. We have not deployed our ground forces yet." The war was not over, but they had learned something they would never forget. Humans did not fight to win. They fought until the enemy could not fight anymore. And humans could fight forever. 6 months after the war began, human ships orbited the HFY. The sight would have been unthinkable when the conflict started. The mightiest military power in the galaxy, humbled by a species they had dismissed as weak and fragile. But the humans had not come to conquer. They had come for something else entirely. Grand Warlord stood in his command bunker beneath the surface of Prime. His empire was falling apart around him. The conquered species had risen up across the galaxy. His fleets were scattered and broken. His generals whispered about surrender in dark corners, but would not surrender. He had ruled for 100 years. He had crushed 43 species under his claws. He would not bow to these soft creatures from a small world. Captain Ha-Jun contacted him directly. The human's face appeared on the calm and composed despite the chaos of war. "Grand Warlord," Hajun said, "I am offering you terms." Laughed bitterly. "You offer me terms, you should be begging for your lives." "We are not begging." Hajun's voice remained steady. "We are giving you a choice. Listen carefully because I will only say this once." The human listed the demands: release of all enslaved species, full reparations for the civilian transport that had been destroyed, and one more thing: they must tell every species in the galaxy what happened. They must admit what they did and why they lost. "You want us to humiliate ourselves," snarled. "We want you to teach a lesson." Hajun leaned forward. "Other species will consider attacking humanity in the future. Other empires will think they can do what you tried to do. We want them to know the consequences. We want them to hear it from you." Elder watched the exchange from the shadows of the command bunker. He had warned from the beginning. He had shown him the ancient records. Now those warnings had become reality. "Grand Warlord," said carefully, "the humans are offering mercy. They could destroy us. They could do to us what we did to the species we conquered. Instead, they offer terms." "Mercy is weakness," spat. "No," shook his aged head. "Mercy is what the strong offer to the defeated. They are proving their strength by not destroying us." Ambassador stepped forward. She had been in secret communication with the humans throughout the war. She knew things the others did not. "I have spoken with their leaders," she said. "The humans did not want this war. They wanted peace. They wanted to trade and explore and exist alongside other species. We forced them into this. They invaded our space," argued. "They attacked our worlds. After we murdered their civilians." His voice was sharp. "After we killed families and children for no reason except arrogance. We started this. They are trying to end it without more death than necessary." Looked at his advisors, his generals, the leaders of his crumbling empire. He saw doubt in their eyes, fear, exhaustion. The war had broken something in the spirit, but would not break. "No," he declared. "We do not surrender, we do not accept terms, we fight to the last." He ordered his remaining forces to launch a final assault on the human fleet. It was madness, suicide, but would rather die than admit defeat. The ships rose from the surface of Prime. They were outnumbered. Their crews were exhausted and demoralized. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the fleet was destroyed. Watched from his bunker as his last ships burned in the sky above his world. He had nothing left. No fleet, no army, no hope. "Prepare for ground defense," he ordered. "They will have to come down here to take me." Sergeant Dongwu led the Marine assault on Prime. His mission was not conquest, it was extraction. They were there for and no one else. The Marines landed in the capital city and advanced toward the command bunker. Warriors tried to stop them, but they were few and tired. The humans moved through the streets with careful precision, avoiding civilian areas, minimizing damage. Dongwu reached the bunker entrance. His team breached the doors and descended into the depths. They found waiting for them in his throne room, alone except for a ceremonial blade in his clawed hands. "Come then," said, "kill me, add my skull to your collection." Dongwu lowered his weapon. "We are not here to kill you, we are here to arrest you." "Arrest?" laughed. "For what crime?" "For the murder of 2,400 human civilians, for starting an unjust war, for crimes against the species you enslaved." Dongwu stepped closer. "You will face trial. You will answer for what you did." "I would rather die fighting." "That is not your choice anymore." Charged with his blade raised. He was still powerful, still deadly, still the grand warlord who had conquered a galaxy. Dongwu was one human soldier with broken ribs and healing wounds. The fight was brief, was strong, but Dongwu was something they did not understand. He was stubborn, he was determined, he refused to fall. When it ended, lay on the floor with Dongwu's boot on his chest. "Why?" gasped. "Why do you fight so hard? Those civilians were not your family. Those colonies were not your home. Why do you care so much? The question hung in the air. Dongwu thought about it for a moment before answering. Because they were ours, he said. They were human, that makes them ours, and we protect what is ours. Captain Ha-jun arrived on the surface to accept the formal surrender, was brought before him in restraints, the once mighty warlord now just a prisoner. Around them, the capital of the Dominion stood intact. The humans had not burned it. They had not destroyed it. They had simply taken what they came for. You could have been the species that ruled the galaxy, Ha-jun said too. Instead, you chose to start a war with humans. This is what that choice cost you. Said nothing, there was nothing left to say. The surrender was signed that day. The Dominion agreed to all human demands. Enslaved species were freed across the galaxy. Reparations were paid, and the truth was broadcast to every corner of known space. Elder wrote the final entry in the Galactic Archives himself. His hands were old and tired, but his words were clear. Let all species know and remember, never start a war with humans. They do not fight for territory. They do not fight for resources. They do not fight for power. They fight for each other. They fight for the members of their species they have never met and never will. They fight because something in their nature refuses to accept injustice. He paused, considering his next words carefully. And they never stop. No matter how long the war lasts, no matter how many they lose, no matter how impossible the odds, humans do not surrender. They do not give up. They endure until their enemies cannot endure anymore. They learned this lesson. Let no other species be foolish enough to learn it again. The archives were sealed and distributed across the galaxy. Every species received a copy. Every world learned what had happened. Years later, on a distant planet, a young alien species discovered a small human outpost on the edge of their territory. Their warriors wanted to attack. Their leaders saw an opportunity for easy conquest. But their elder, the keeper of knowledge, showed them the archives. He showed them the record of the war. He showed them what happened to the mightiest military power in the galaxy when they chose to fight humans. The young species looked at the small human outpost. They looked at the soft creatures with their thin skin and 2 arms. They seemed so weak, so fragile, so easy to defeat. No, the elder said firmly. You do not see what I see. Those are not weak creatures. Those are the species that broke the Dominion. Those are the species that never surrender. The warriors lowered their weapons. What do we do instead? One asked. We send diplomats, the elder replied. We send traders, we send friends. That is the only safe way to deal with humans. Anything else is madness. The young species chose peace. They were the first of many to make that choice after reading the archives. And somewhere in the void, aboard a ship that had survived the impossible, Captain Ha-jun continued his voyage among the stars. The war was over. The lesson had been taught. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Not through conquest, not through destruction, but through something far more powerful. Through the simple, stubborn, unbreakable refusal to ever give up.